The first time I'd actually gone out into the outside world and spoken to someone I knew rather than it just being like a remote connection. And I remember thinking that was quite significant.
The World Health Organization has officially called it COVID-19. On Monday in China, it suffered its highest number of deaths in one day. 103 people died just in Hubei province alone. The overall death toll in China is now over 1,000, and more than 40,000 people have been infected worldwide.
So when did you first become aware of the coronavirus pandemic?
Well, it would have been in the news. There was a lot of talk around something originating in China, and there were some concerns about how China was managing it, and then whether it's going to have an effect on the rest of the world. But essentially it was just a news item.
It was a cruise none of its passengers expected. Cut short, the Diamond Princess was quarantined for nearly a month in Japan as coronavirus spread through its bows. More than 700 of its passengers have now contracted the infection. 6 have died. The 6th, confirmed today, is the first Briton to fall victim to the illness.
The coronavirus pandemic started in China, spread to Europe, and had reached the UK by the end of January.
Unwelcome but expected, the coronavirus has hit the UK.
On the 6th of February, another case of coronavirus was identified, and by the end of February, the total number of confirmed cases in the UK had reached 23.
We need people to start working from home where they possibly can, and you should avoid pubs, clubs, theatres, and other such social venues.
The number of people who have died after testing positive for COVID-19 in UK hospitals has risen now. That total stands at 9,875.
Telling cafes, pubs, bars and restaurants to close.
NHS England today, now they have reported another 823 people who have died with coronavirus.
I urge you, at this moment of national emergency, to stay at home, protect our NHS and save lives.
How did you feel when the first lockdown was announced?
Well, I think it was a bit of shock and disbelief, really, like what was going to happen. It was a little bit like being, I suppose, on a war footing, not having ever lived through a war. But I had a friend in the house who said something like, life is never going to be the same again. I'm kind of used to living on my own. I do live on my own. So I'm quite lucky I can pace about the house a bit and move from room to room and do what I want to do, really. Well, in a way I was lucky because I had a full-time job that didn't change, and I was working with the NHS that was very busy and keeping me occupied. And outside of that, we set up Zoom calls with my friends. We had a weekly call amongst 4 of us every Friday night at the end of the working week, which I think was a very good idea. And one of my friends did a weekly script reading class. So every Thursday we'd get together in a group and read a script, as if really we were still meeting together. I think that was a really good and helpful thing to do. I'm coping as best I can. Kind of like it was the unknown. It was just, where were we going to go with it?
Our top story is that the Prime Minister is holding urgent talks this weekend to decide whether to impose lockdown restrictions on the whole of England to tackle the current surge in coronavirus cases.
Yes, Boris Johnson says the UK is now seeing a second wave, with the number of new infections doubling every week and hospital admissions also on the rise. Early closing in Newcastle and the North East as a nighttime curfew for bars and restaurants comes into effect.
From Thursday until the start of December, you must stay at home. You may only leave home for specific reasons, including for education, for work, let's say if you cannot work from home, for exercise and recreation outdoors with your household or on your own with one person from another household, for medical reasons, appointments.
I think lockdown 1 was harder, firstly because it was new. We were getting used to the idea of being restricted. And secondly, because I think my sense was it was more restrictive than the other lockdowns. And I remember thinking after the lockdown one ended, which was I think in June, so we'd had 3 months indoors, I actually walked to the park and funny enough saw someone I knew sitting in the park, and I had a chat with them, and it was the first time I'd actually gone out into the outside world and spoken to someone I knew, rather than it just being like a remote connection. We've had the experience of last year, so we kind of know how to deal with things better now. I think people are more sociable as a result. People are more caring. It's nicer to see people about, and I think people are more aware of other people. And I think probably me as much as anyone else appreciates the chance to come to a park like this, and where there are lots of people using it, and it's a communal space. And I think community is really important at times like this. So I really appreciate it. I was guilty in my own life of not recognising levels of support that people needed, possibly because I'm quite used to coping on my own. And I think it's really important to empathise with others and seeing that they need support as well. Obviously, with a lot of older people dying, it's essentially having their lives shortened is what COVID has done, has made me think that we've probably got fewer years left in us than we might think, and that it's really important to make the best use of the time that you've had.
Chief Medical Officer, Chief Scientific Advisor yesterday both warning us that the figures were going to get worse.
Some breaking news as the UK has recorded its highest ever daily total of COVID-19 cases.
62,322 new confirmed cases.
For a number of days now, the figure for the number of people who have died from COVID-19 has surpassed 800.
1,041 further deaths within 28 days of a positive coronavirus test.
445 deaths have been reported in the latest 24-hour period. That brings a total number of people who've died in the UK within 28 days of a positive test to 74,570.
What's really concerning is that these figures are showing no signs of slowing down. In the last 2 weeks of December, the cases of COVID-19 rose by 70%.
That is up from 60,916 yesterday.
57,725 new cases of COVID-19 have also been recorded.
This is the highest number of deaths that we have seen since the 21st of April, during the peak of the first wave of the COVID-19 pandemic.
With most of the country already under extreme measures, it's clear that we need to do more together to bring this new variant under control while our vaccines are rolled out. In England, we must therefore go into a national lockdown which is tough enough to contain this variant.
It's been less intense, lockdowns 3. As for my own mental health, I think that may be for others to judge, really, actually, longer term, because I'm not really sure whether my mental health is good or bad or indifferent, and I think time will tell when we get back into normality.
I find it quite relaxing, being out in the fresh air. It somehow brings you a bit closer to nature, and it allows you just to try and shape a little bit of something through my own efforts. The other thing I found actually that works for me is there's this little straight stretch here. I started developing a little jogging session at lunchtimes, doing short sprints up and down this stretch. It's purely just to keep the legs moving, because you do a lot of sitting around indoors on the computer and just not moving enough.
I think it's not good for people to be locked down for too long. One of the things that's the unmeasured consequence of this is the effect on other types of health and other treatments. With the rollout of the vaccinations, that seems to have gone pretty well. I feel that generally the most vulnerable will be protected, and that we're in a position to move forward and start to meet up again.
Coronavirus infections are falling in parts of England, offering scientists hope the current surge of cases will begin to decline. Experts at Cambridge University believe that the R rate, or the rate at which a person passes on coronavirus, has fallen below 1 in the southeast, London, northeast, West Midlands and the east of England.
Hello? Hi Reece, how you doing? Yeah, good. All right, just doing a bit of reading actually. yeah, get a chance to catch up on some reading. Good, excellent. Yeah, that sounds good. Excellent news. 12th of April, you say?
Boris Johnson has unveiled his so-called roadmap for the gradual lifting of the lockdown in England, a process that starts on March the 8th. Wales, Scotland and Northern Ireland have their own separate arrangements. In England, if all conditions are met, the restrictions will all disappear by the 21st of June.
Since the lockdown, I've handed in my notice of work, and so I've stopped working full time now, which is giving me obviously more time to do things that I think bring me more enjoyment, and also will give me more time perhaps to be more supportive to others. I always enjoy a trip to the pub. I think it's a big part of a lot of people's culture, and yeah, I think it's good to have the pubs open again. I would recommend following the guidance. I was a bit reluctant at first myself, but I think it's important because the way to look at this is not about individuals, this is about humankind and society. This is something that we're all in together, but also that you're never too old to learn, never stop learning. So there's always stuff to take in and always be ready for new challenges.